The first time I saw my best friend in 3 months, he wasn't sitting in his gaming chair. He was being restrained by TMTs on a gurney, screaming that I had ruined his life. His skin was translucent, a sickly shade of gray that looked almost blue under the flashing lights of the ambulance and the fire trucks. His mother stood on the front lawn, clutching her bathrobe, sobbing into her hands while a fire marshal placed a condemned notice on the front door of the house she had owned for 20 years. Neighbors were filming from their porches, capturing the moment the police carried out tower after tower of overheating server equipment that had turned a suburban bedroom into a ticking time bomb. As they loaded him into the back of the ambulance, he locked eyes with me. There was no gratitude, only pure, unadulterated hatred. He spat in my direction, straining against the straps before the doors slammed shut. I stood there, watching my best friend being driven away to a psychiatric hold, knowing that I was the one who had made the call. To understand why I had to burn my best friend's empire to the ground to save him, you have to go back to the beginning of the summer. It started innocently enough. Wada had always been introverted. He was the guy who preferred a Friday night on Discord to a party, the one who built his own PCS and optimized his setup with obsessive precision. When summer break hit, we all expected him to hibernate for a few days, recharge, and then rejoin the world. But days turned into weeks. Text went unanswered. Discord status remained permanently set to do not disturb. By the third week, the silence wasn't just eccentric, it was alarming. I decided to do a wellness check. I drove over to his house at 8 a.m. on a Tuesday. His mother answered the door, and the change in her appearance was the first red flag. She looked exhausted, the kind of deep-seated weariness that comes from walking on eggshells in your own home. She held a cup of coffee with a trembling hand, and when she saw me, her shoulders slumped in relief. "He won't open the door," she whispered, glancing up the stairs as if the mere sound of her voice might trigger an explosion. I leave food outside the room, and he pulls it in when I'm asleep. I hear humming. Constant humming. And the heat coming from under the door is unbearable. "I'll get him out," I promised. I walked up the stairs. The air got heavier with every step. By the time I reached the landing, the temperature had noticeably spiked. It smelled of ozone, stale sweat, and old fast food. I knocked. No answer. I knocked harder. "Wada, open the door. It's me." Nothing but the aggressive whirring of industrial fans. I tried the handle, locked. I didn't ask for permission. I shoulder-checked the door. It took 2 tries, but the cheap lock gave way. The room that greeted me was not a bedroom. It was a furnace. The windows were sealed shut with black gaffer tape over layers of aluminum foil. The darkness was pierced only by the strobe light blinking of server racks. He had dismantled his bed to make room for them. There were towers everywhere on the desk, on the floor, stacked on the dresser. The heat was physical, a wall of stifling, dry air that instantly dried out my contacts. And there, in the center of it all, was Wada. He sat in a high-end ergonomic chair that looked like the cockpit of a spaceship. He was shirtless, his ribs showing through his skin, slick with sweat. He wore noise-canceling headphones and was typing furiously on 3 different monitors. He didn't even look up when the door burst open. "Get out," he rasped. His voice was wrecked, unused. "Wada, look at this place," I said, stepping over a tangle of thick black power cables. "It's 100 degrees in here. You look like a corpse." "I'm busy," he snapped, his eyes darting across lines of code. "I'm mining. I'm trading. I'm building equity. You wouldn't understand." "You're rotting," I countered. "Your mom is terrified. You haven't showered in weeks." "Time is money," he muttered, a mantra I would hear 1,000 times over the next month. Hygiene is a depreciating asset. I realized then that this wasn't just gaming. This was a compulsion. He had convinced himself that he was on the verge of creating generational wealth, but in reality, he was running a crypto mining operation that was costing more in electricity and health than it was generating in profit. I decided to try the soft intervention first. I signaled his mom, who was hovering in the hallway. "We are leaving," I announced. "Right now." "No," he said, still typing. "Yes." I walked over and did the unthinkable. I reached down to the main power strip. Wada spun around, his eyes wild. "Don't you dare. The reboot sequence takes 40 minutes. I'll lose the hash rate." "I don't care about the hash rate," I said, and I flipped the switch. The silence that followed was deafening. The fans spun down. The lights died. The room plunged into actual darkness. For a second, I thought he was going to hit me. He stood up, shaking, his fist clenched. But without the roar of the machines, he seemed to shrink. The adrenaline left him, replaced by exhaustion. He swayed. "Get dressed," I commanded. "We are going to the park. We are getting food. You are going to touch grass." It took 20 minutes of coaxing and threats to get him into a hoodie and joggers. He looked like a vampire being dragged into the sunlight. When we stepped out the front door, he physically recoiled, shielding his eyes. "It burns," he complained. "That's vitamin D," I said. "Deal with it." We took him to a burger place. He ate like a starving animal, inhaling a double cheeseburgers in silence. For a brief moment, as the sugar from the milkshake hit his system, I saw my friend come back. The tension in his jaw loosened. He cracked a joke about the waitress. "See," I said. "Real life isn't that bad. It's slow," he muttered, looking at his phone. "The latency of the real world is terrible." I thought I had made a breakthrough. I dropped him off with the promise that he'd keep the machines off for the night and get some sleep. I thought I had saved him with a burger and a stern talking to. I was naive. 2 days later, his mother called me. She was crying. The power went out. She sobbed. The whole house. He tried to bypass the breaker box. There were sparks. The electrician said the wiring in the walls is melting. I drove over. The house was dark. Wada was in the garage this time, trying to hotwire a generator he'd bought online. He looked worse than before. "You tried to burn the house down?" I asked, looking at the scorched panel on the wall. "I need more amperage," he said, not making eye contact. "The residential grid is a joke. I'm scaling up. I just need to bypass the meter. That's a felony, WADA. And it's dangerous." "I'm close," he insisted, his eyes manic. I hit a block. "I'm up 3%. If I sustain this for another month, I can buy a warehouse. I can move out." "You won't have a month," I said. "You're going to kill your mother in a house fire before then." He looked at me, and for the first time, I saw that the friend I knew was completely gone. In his place was an addict. "If you try to stop me again," he said, his voice low and cold, "I will ruin you. I know your passwords. I know where you bank. Stay out of my way." He threatened me. He threatened his own mother. He was willing to risk incineration for digital coins. I left the house. I sat in my car for an hour, staring at the darkened windows. I knew that if I did nothing, he would eventually succeed in bypassing that meter, and the old wiring in that house would catch fire. I knew that if I tried another soft intervention, he would just lock me out. I realized the only option left was the one that would end our friendship permanently. I didn't call the police immediately. I called the city's code enforcement and the fire marshal. "I'd like to report a hazardous situation," I told the dispatcher. "Illegal electrical modifications, extreme fire risk, residential zoning violation. There is an immediate danger to life." I gave them the address. Then I called his mother. "Leave the house," I told her. "Go to your sister's. Taking the dog. Don't tell him why." "What are you doing?" she asked, terrified. "I'm making sure he doesn't die," I said. "Just go." She left. An hour later, the trucks arrived. I parked down the street and watched. It wasn't a raid in the sense of guns drawn, but it was forceful. The fire marshal took one look at the bypass meter and the heat radiating from the garage, and made the call. They pounded on the door. WADA didn't answer. They breached the door. I saw the lights go on as they moved through the house. I saw them reach the bedroom. I heard the shouting from the street. WADA had barricaded himself in. He was screaming that they had no right, that he was a sovereign citizen, that they were destroying his property. When they finally got into the room, they found him trying to destroy hard drives with a hammer, frantic to hide whatever illicit data he was hoarding. They didn't arrest him for the mining. They detained him for the immediate threat he posed to himself and others. He was dehydrated, malnourished, and in a state of psychosis from sleep deprivation. That brings us back to the ambulance. When he saw me standing there, he knew. He knew I had called them. He knew I had orchestrated the shutdown. "Traitor!" he screamed, his voice cracking. "I was going to be rich. I was going to save us." I didn't say anything. I just watched them load him in. The fire marshal condemned the house until the electrical system could be completely gutted and replaced, a repair bill that cost tens of thousands of dollars, wiping out every cent of profit WADA had supposedly made. His mother had to take out a second mortgage to fix the damage he caused. WADA spent 3 weeks in a psychiatric facility. He was treated for severe exhaustion and addiction. When he got out, he was different, quiet. The manic energy was gone, replaced by a sullen depression. He blocked me on everything. Phone, social media, email. I heard from his mom that he got a job at a warehouse doing physical labor. No computers. He was paying her back slowly. 6 months later, I was at a coffee shop when I saw him. He looked healthy. He had gained weight. His skin wasn't gray anymore. He was waiting in line looking at a book, not a phone. He saw me. He stiffened. I didn't expect a hug. I didn't expect forgiveness. I prepared myself for a confrontation. He walked over to my table. He stood there for a long moment, looking down at me. "My mom kept the house," he said. It wasn't a question. "I know," I said. "She told me." "I lost everything else," he said. "The drives, the coins, the rig. It's all gone." "I know." He took a deep breath, and I saw a flash of the old WADA, the one who used to laugh at bad movies and build Lego sets. "I would have burned it down," he said quietly. "I know that now. I wouldn't have stopped." "I know," I repeated. "I still hate you for it," he said, his voice steady. "I can't be your friend. Every time I look at you, I remember being strapped to that gurney. I remember the humiliation." "That's fair," I said. "But," he paused, adjusting his grip on his book. "I'm alive. So, thanks for that part." He walked away without looking back. I finished my coffee alone. I realized then that saving someone doesn't always mean being the hero in their story. Sometimes being a good friend means being the villain in their narrative, if it means they get to live long enough to tell it. We never played another game together. We never hung out again. But every time I drive past his mom's house and see the lights on, warm and safe, and not flickering from a dangerous overload, I know I made the right call. Boundaries aren't just about keeping people out. Sometimes they're about forcefully pulling people back in before they fall off the edge of the world. And the cost of that rescue is a price I'd pay again in a heartbeat.